Kentucky, Kentucky County, a place I want to stay. I'm John Stevenson. June Guyman and I are glad to be back off our trip across Kentucky. We traveled some 42,000 miles gathering the history of Kentucky, county by county, and its tourism attractions. We hope you will appreciate the films of the history of Kentucky by your congressional districts as much as we appreciated the opportunity of traveling through Kentucky some 42,000 miles. Thank you. Now enjoy the history of Kentucky. At this time, let me introduce to you, to give you an overview of Kentucky history, Dr. Thomas Clark.
Dr. Clark, we want to thank you for being with us.
Thank you. I'm happy to be with you.
What can you tell us? We have been to every county in Kentucky. We've collected the information about the history of each county. We've come to you, Mr. History, to help us close our documentation on Kentucky by telling us a little bit how Kentucky itself got formed.
Well, Kentucky had a bit of a nebulous beginning. This was a wide open, unexplored wilderness territory on this side of the mountains. You begin to see an opening of the door as early as the middle decades of the 18th century. By 1760, Kentucky was gradually coming into focus, and by 1770, it was pretty well explored by the long hunters that came in, and then of course that famous party, they were long hunters too, of Daniel Boone and John Finley, who came into this state. Now, contrary, I think, to popular belief, this was not a region unmarked by no trails or no landmarks. There were buffalo traces, Indian traces across the state. As you know, no major Indian tribe occupied this state. This was a borderland between the northern Indians, the Shawnees with all their associated tribes, and the southern Chickasaw, our group to the south. And there was a great deal of rivalry between them to claim this hunting ground. Now, Kentucky, you know, geographically is of a highly varied nature, highly sectionalized nature. This central cane land here, or what you know as the Bluegrass Plateau, was a very famous grazing ground. There were salt licks scattered around all over the state where animals congregated, and the skin trade, the Indian trade, was a fairly rich one that originated here. In the early records, you have stories of the long hunters pursuing both the fur trade and the skin trade, but the major emphasis was upon the skin trade itself. Then, of course, in the middle of the 18th century, the rivalry between the French and the British, and you began to having those land speculators or surveyors like Thomas Walker, Christopher Gist coming into the region, making those preliminary so-called surveys in quotation marks. From 1760 on, the British were in control of this territory. The British undertook to check population expansion in this direction in the proclamation of 1763, which they were unsuccessful in doing. After 1770, you had a population movement into this region with the establishment in 1774 and 75 of Harrodsburg, or Harrodstown, and Boonesboro, Logan's Fort, and then Bryan Station, Lexington Fort. We're standing right now almost on the ground where the Lexington Fort was located. From that time on, there was a great population movement into this region that you know as Kentucky, concentrated largely in this central bluegrass area, but population in time was to expand into other areas of the state.
What were the first counties in Kentucky?
Well, Kentucky County was the first one in 1776. That was simply a blanket. Well, I believe back of that there was Fincastle County, but Kentucky County was simply a blanket spread of Virginia authority into this western country. Then in 1780 they were created the first three counties, Lafayette, Fayette, Lincoln, and Jefferson counties. Fayette County covered all the area north of the Kentucky River. Lincoln County, the area east of Benson's Creek, and Jefferson County, south of the Kentucky River, and west and south of Benson's Creek. Benson Creek's mouth is just opposite, about where that office plaza is in Frankfort at the present time.
Okay. During the interview, we're standing on West Main Street, which is right across from the old Fayette County Courthouse. What is the significance of this area, Dr. Clark?
We're standing in a very historic spot here. Right here to my right, where this Radisson Hotel is located, is the site of the old Fort Lexington. It was built here on this town creek with trim cane all around it. They cleared the cane all around it, build a fort, and give them visibility, not to be surprised by a sneak Indian attack. Right to my right, on the corner of Main and Mill Street, is where the office of the True American stood. That was an anti-slavery paper published by Cassius M. Clay here in the very heart of Kentucky slavery, which that office was raided illegally so, in violation of the First Amendment of the Constitution. It was packed up. Later on, the courts granted Cassius M. Clay restitution, and he collected damages for it. To my back is Cheapside. Cheapside has a long and romantic history. Here within 50 feet of where we are standing was the scene of the slave auctions, where slaves were sold out of this bluegrass region to the expanding cotton belt in the south. It's also the scene of the great court day markets in which the livestock trade was carried on. This place used to be crowded with horses, cows, sheep, every kind of, all dogs, everything that people had to trade come in on court day and gather around this spot. Two, it was a great political stumping ground for politicians. I could not tell you the speakers who have lifted their voice in seeking office in this square to our back. The building immediately behind us is the fifth courthouse to stand on this spot. The first one was constructed in 1788. They were either burned or torn down because they were antiquated. The fourth courthouse contained the wonderful piece of Kentucky artistry, Woman Triumphant, by the famous artist, just a moment, I think Joel Tanner Hart. The courthouse burned down and destroyed that wonderful piece of statuary. I had an forearm of that graceful figure, which I gave to the University of Kentucky. So far as I know, that's the only existing relic of that. Here were conducted trials, lawyers, a string of Kentucky famous lawyers, John Breckinridge, Caleb Wallace, George Nicholas, on down Henry Clay, on down through lawyers of the most famous of the Kentucky bars practiced in this courthouse across the street. That is one of its predecessors. Here it was, right after World War II, that the Army was called out, not the militia. The regular Army was called out to quell a lynch mob in the famous Leavitt trial, in which this square was seething with people with ropes and tar, threatening to lynch that Negro boy. The Army veterans brought from the battlefield of France stood off the mob, and the trial proceeded in an orderly way. It is also a square, a statuary of John Hunt Morgan's equestrian statue is over to our left. John Breckinridge's statue is here to our on Sheepside. This was the center of the business area of Lexington. Not only Lexington, but it was a kind of a commercial nerve center for all of eastern Kentucky and all of central Kentucky. Louisville, after 1820, became the major commercial city of the state.
Choosing a selection of the capital of the state, how was that done?
It's a pretty complicated issue. Of course, you would have thought they would have chosen one of the major towns in the state, like Lexington or Louisville or Danville, for instance, or Harrodsburg, but they didn't. They went to Frankfurt for various reasons, and I'm not sure that I'm entirely right about all of them, but one of the reasons, it was located near the center of Kentucky population at the time. It also was located on the river, easy access by water. The people of Frankfurt supplied some materials and support for the building of a capital, and like all things, everlastingly, including the observation of the Ten Commandments in Kentucky, there's some kind of political implication involved.
Okay. Can you tell us just a little bit about yourself, besides the immense amounts of knowledge that you possess? How did you get interested in history?
I came to Kentucky in 1928 without knowing a single soul in this state. I got off the train down here on September the 14th, 1928, with 25,000 Kentucky Republicans milling around. I had never seen a Republican who wasn't a postmaster until I rode in the seat from Ashland down here with Charlie Curtis, who was running for vice president on the Hoover ticket. I came here as a student at the University of Kentucky. I was a graduate of the University of Mississippi, and I started work on my master's thesis in the field of Kentucky history, writing on the subject of trade in slaves, livestock, and hemp between this area and the lower South. And I became very much interested in the history of the state from that. And there's scarcely a day gone by in the last 60 years that somewhere or other I haven't been involved in doing something about the history of the state.
We also understand that you've written 20-plus books. Can you tell us what some of the books are about?
Well, I've published a history of Kentucky, the Exploring Kentucky, which was used a long time in the schools. I published the Kentucky in the Rivers of America series, the Rampaging Frontier, Frontier America, the Emerging South, Pills, Petticoats, and Plows, Southern Country Editor, and I've just published The Greening of the South, which has to do with reforestation and conservation of the southern land.
We were talking earlier about the changes that have been made. And when we've interviewed other people, we've asked them what changes they've seen take place. Can you tell us a little bit about the changes you've observed since you've been in Kentucky?
In the state or in the county?
In the state.
Oh, yes. Phenomenal changes. Despite all of the discussion of the educational system and the low standing in many categories of educational effort, I've seen phenomenal changes in educational endeavor. I think I've seen, although I'm no longer in the classroom, I think a much better prepared student is coming to college and universities now than in the old days. I've seen the family farm virtually on the way to disappearance. Who would have thought in 1928 that the great tobacco industry in this state would be threatened as it has been? You would be very remiss not to observe that Kentucky has made phenomenal progress in breaking the barrier of isolation, in building its highway system, and going into every part of the state. In the Clements administration, that legislation from building farm-to-market roads, building the interstate highway system, and then, of course, supplemented by the toll road system in the state, has made marked changes in Kentucky. I've also seen Kentucky fail to meet its challenges, fail to come up with what it's possible for it to do. Kentucky is still a provincial agrarian state trying desperately to just kind of ease into the 21st century, very poorly prepared to do so.
What do you think about what John's doing?
I think it's very interesting indeed. To go into all 120 counties in this state is a monumental undertaking. And he's gathered up a contemporary vignette look at the state that 50 years from now, people will turn back to these tapes and see that old historian in Lexington and all these people around the courthouses in 119 other counties and say, good God, is that where we were at that time? No, I think it's creating a very nice, interesting, and useful historical document.
I just wanted to come over here for a second to heap a little praise. It's not necessary, but I'm going to do it for this gentleman, Dr. Thomas Clark, because not only did he teach there at the University of Kentucky when I went there to UK, and I had Dr. Charles Talbert for Kentucky history, but I used your book when I taught American history in high school and Kentucky history in high school. And it was a great deal of honor that I did so. You know, I look back over my history myself, and I had people like Mrs. Hinsdale for a history teacher in the 8th grade, and you remember those people that make a mark on your life. And Dr. Clark, you've made a mark on many people's lives here in Kentucky and across the United States and world, and we're very proud of you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. You spoke of a very fine historian in Charlie Talbot. Charlie was very precise and exacting in his book on Benjamin Logan is an excellent book. He also had a very fine volume on the history of the later years of the University of Kentucky. He was an excellent teacher, as the people in northern Kentucky will tell you.
Absolutely. It's indeed a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you, sir. It's nice being here with you, and good luck, John.
Thank you so much.
And good luck,
Thank you.
lady manager.
I'm John Stevenson. June Guyman and I, along with Kentucky's historians, are proud to give you the history of Kentucky in the 1st Congressional District. Wickliffe, the county seat of Ballard County. Ballard County's population is 8,250. The area square miles is 254, which ranks 83rd. Ballard County is located in the 1st Congressional District.
My name is Judy McGee Stone, and I am editor of the Advance Yeoman and an amateur historian, though I have done several books on Ballard County. And it is a pleasure to welcome you here today.
I'm Lloyd Key, Ballard County Judge Executive, and I wish to take this opportunity to welcome you to Ballard County and especially to the Ballard County Courthouse. I delight in talking about Ballard County, and I would like to take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about our duck hunting and goose hunting in the area. We are the primary duck and goose hunting territory in Kentucky, and we have a lot of people that comes into our county and hunting on the Ballard County Game Refuge, and we would like to take this opportunity to tell you that there's also good fishing in this county, and I have been told by some professional bass fishermen that we have some of the best bass fishing in the United States. A lot of people do not realize this, and we have the Mississippi River, the Ohio River, Mayfield Creek, Humphreys Creek, Swamp Lake, Clear Lake, Fish Lake, Flat Lake, Axe Lake, Mitchell Lake, and I can go on and on and on. But we do have a lot of fishing, and I would like to invite you to come to Ballard County, camping and fishing and just enjoying yourselves with your family. And at this time, I'm going to ask Judy McGee Stoner to tell you all about the Ballard County and Ballard County Courthouse.
Thank you. One thing, Lloyd, I think you failed to mention was the Wickliffe Mounds up here. It was formerly known as Ancient Buried City and has the relics of a tribe that preceded the Indians. And it is now owned by Murray State University and is being used for an awful lot of archaeological research. And Ballard County is a beautiful little county, and it has fine farmland. The first fort west of Harrodsburg was located in Wickliffe in 1780 by George Rogers Clark. And though he never lived here himself, he had a house here, and he visited when he was going to Indiana and Illinois. And it was built here to stop the Spanish and the British during the Revolutionary War. It was finally abandoned after the Indians attacked it and killed all the settlers. But after that, the county was not opened up anymore until after the Jackson Purchase. Now, the Jackson Purchase comprises 8 counties west of the Tennessee River. And Ballard County was formed from half of Hickman County and half of Ballard County. And at that time, Ballard County is what was included the territory that is now known as Carlisle County. And Carlisle County became a separate entity in 1886. The first courthouse was built at Blandville, Kentucky in 1842. And there is a town square there where the courthouse was located. The courthouse burned in 1880. And there is a nasty rumor that the people in Wycliffe burned the courthouse. And a very interesting account of this courthouse burning is found in Irvin S. Cobb's Old Judge Priest stories. And Old Judge Priest was a native of Blandville, and he felt like that the courthouse had been burned, and I think it had been because some of the records of the first court trials came back to the courthouse in 1916 and are still a part of the records. But all the property and wills and all the legal papers were burned when the courthouse burned in 1880. Now, prior to the founding of Wycliffe, Fort Jefferson became a settlement on the Mississippi River. And as such, it had a courthouse, and it had not a courthouse, but a post office and a whiskey store and a general store and a lumber mill and a whiskey distillery. And it was a thriving little place. And the money from Fort Jefferson went in to make Wycliffe the county seat. Now, Wycliffe was named after Colonel Charles A. Wycliffe, who was a colonel in the Civil War. And he had founded the 7th Armored Division, and he was the commandant at Columbus Belmont Park. And he was killed in the Battle of Shiloh. And after he died, his heirs gave the land for the courthouse at Wycliffe. And his brother-in-law was Sam Moore. And Sam Moore paid for the courthouse at Wycliffe out of his own pocket, the first courthouse we had. But there was an awful lot of dissatisfaction because some people in Blandville felt like that Wycliffe burned the courthouse just for the heck of it, you know, to get the courthouse. So there was 3 major lawsuits, and it was quite an argument for a number of years whether Wycliffe burned the courthouse or not. My opinion is that they did burn the courthouse. But anyhow, it still remains, and that was the first courthouse. And the bridge burned between Blandville and Wycliffe. And in 1886, Carlisle County pulled out of Ballard County and formed its own county with Bardwell as the county seat. And during the Civil War, Ballard County furnished over 800 soldiers to the Confederacy. And we have always taken our part in every kind of war or activity that the nation has had. And other than that, it is a site, present-day site, of one of the largest paper mills in the country. And a lot of the economy of Wycliffe and Ballard County is based on the Westvaco mill. And except for the mill and the duck and geese hunting, well, the rest of the industry is mostly agriculture. And a few people work at the atomic energy plant near Keville.
Thank you.
Morgantown, the county seat of Butler County. Butler County population, 11,256. Area square miles, 431. Rank, 25th. Butler is located in the 1st Congressional District.
My name is Michael Waddle from Morgantown.
Thank you.
Mary Jean Smith, Morgantown.
Thank you.
David Martin, County Judge Executive, Butler County.
And I'm Christine Coleman, Circuit Court Clerk.
All right, thank you. What could we get people to come through Morgantown to see? And the county itself as well.
Well, I think it's just it's a great place to be, great place to live. We have some of the finest people in the world here, and we're just proud of it, really are.
Okay. Industry. What is your major industry in the area?
Okay, of course, this is a rural county. It's strip mining, farming. We have several factories here. Kelwood is one. That's a clothing manufacturer. We have Kane's, been here a long time, D&M Enterprises, and we're also just recently got a plant from Japanese, Sumitomo Electrical Wiring System, so we're real proud of that.
Christine, could you tell us a little bit about your role in the county?
Well, of course, I've been circuit court clerk since 1970, and of recent years, we've been working promoting the art-related, the Morgantown Community Park Theater. I served on that board for several years, and we've promoted the arts in the county through the theater. We have, through the George Dabbs Celebration of the Arts, we've started an outdoor drama. We've presented the second production this past year, and we're into the third year of that. It was very successful. It was parented by the Historical Society. It's a work of the Historical Society. And our Green River Catfish Festival, this is our 5th or 6th year of that, and it has been a whopping success. We have a $10,000 catfish, and it has been caught, and we hope this year the festival will be even greater. John Wells is managing the festival this year, and it has some exciting new plans for an arts and crafts festival in the middle of that, and it's not just a county fair. It's going to be artsy and more than it's ever been before, I think.
Okay, what are the dates of the festival?
It's always the 4th of July weekend. Our first courthouse was built in 1810 when the county was formed, and it burned. And in 1872, we built a building that housed the courthouse until 1974, when we tore it down. 73, we tore it down, and we moved into this building in April of 1975. And our immediately preceding courthouse was a replica of the one in Brownsville. It was exactly like the one in Brownsville in Edmonson County. The history of the court and bar of Butler County is in a measure the history of Kentucky, pursuant to an act of the General Assembly of Kentucky, approved January 18, 1810, which provided for the formation of a new county out of the counties of Logan and Ohio. William Shroud, Robert Cooper, William Porter, Ben Rutherford, Hugh Morris, John Harold, Josiah Kuykendall, Thomas Carson, John Tyler, Thomas Lawrence, and George Wilson met at the house of John Tyler on Monday, June the 11th, 1810, and produced a commission from His Excellency Charles Scott, who was then the governor of Kentucky, and he appointed them as justices of the peace of Butler County. Matthew Kuykendall was the first sheriff. Robert Morrison was the county clerk. John Breathitt was admitted to the bar to practice law, and he was appointed county attorney.
Well, Butler County is on Green River, and it used to be a lot of river boat traffic, but since the toll roads, that is not so now. With the toll roads coming through, the county is the biggest change in the last number of years. Green River Museum at Woodbury, which is on the river. Mr. Waddle is chairman of the museum board. He can tell you.
We have developed a museum at Woodbury at Locking Dam number 4, an 8-room house up there where we took over from the National Park Service in Atlanta, Georgia. Now we are to continue to develop that museum up there now. We won't be finished with that. We're just getting in the process of renovating the museum altogether.
Okay.
On the 15th of April. And we have a restaurant out there where it's a home-style restaurant. I'm sure if you through Butler County you want a good meal, stop out there and meet with us. They're open Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
All right, thank you.
Princeton, the county seat of Caldwell County. Caldwell County population, 13,360. Area square miles, 347. Rank, 46th. Caldwell County is located in the 1st Congressional District.
I'm Jimmy Jones, Caldwell County Judge Executive.
Thank you.
Barbara Van Hooser, Caldwell County Clerk.
I'm Jimmy Wallace, Property Evaluation Administrator of Caldwell County.
All right, thank you. The judge is pressed for time, so we're just going to ask him a quick question so he can leave. Judge, what can you tell us about your position here in Caldwell County?
I've been a Judge Executive for the last almost 6 years. Our unemployment in Caldwell County is real high, almost 15%. And we've lost some industries, and we're working, doing everything we can to bring some more back in.
Our county was formed in 1809, and we're very proud of it. It's a good place to live, beautiful part of the state. Our courthouse was built in by the WPA in 1939 and 40. I think we moved in they moved in 1940. And I guess we're just like most all other towns now. We've got a lot of things we wish for that I guess are not real feasible, but we'd like to see a lot of tourists come into our area. We'd like to see industry here. And we just like to see things keep rolling.
Okay. Mr. Wallace, what can you tell us about your position?
I've held my position as Property Evaluation Administrator. This would be my 6th term. Of course, we've seen this county grow from 1966 assessment of $66 million to well over $300 million at this time, with probably homestead exemptions and disability exemptions amounting to some $70 million. So we've increased our assessment several times. Of course, this is due to the growth in this county, which now is more or less at a standstill or even going backward some. We hear a lot about industry and the tourists and so forth, which I think everyone agrees that we need to have this as maybe our #1 priority. However, Caldwell County and Princeton is strictly an agriculture area, and as everyone knows, agriculture is in a real crisis at this time. No one seems to know the answer, and I know I certainly don't. I think we need officials on the national level as well as the state level who will take a real hard look at the agriculture problems of our entire country and see what can be done to relieve some of this crisis that we now have, and hopefully with a new administration in Washington and maybe here in the state of Kentucky, they can work together to relieve some of our problems. Okay. We have on the north side of the courthouse a marker that shows that this was a route of the Trail of Tears, which I'm not sure what year it was, but the Indians, I think, coming through. And then, of course, this area of the state, and particularly right here in Caldwell County, was noted several years ago for its night riders. We had some tobacco factories burned here during those days. A lot of the officials of the Night Rider Association or group were from right here in Caldwell County. They were very active at their time. Of course, some of the older people in the county could tell you more in detail about that than Barbara and myself, but it was well known during those days when the people were fighting for higher tobacco prices and formed the organization which was known as the Night Riders.
Okay, great.
I'd like to tell you one thing, boost the people coming into town. We have the Black Patch Festival. It started out to be the Tobacco Festival, and I believe next year will be the 50th anniversary of when this thing started. And we have the street fairs. This is always in September. We have street dancing. It's just our big day of the year here.
And when is that?
This is I can't give you the exact date, but in September each year.
Okay.
So it's a real nice thing.
Caldwell County was the 51st county formed in 1809 from Livingston County and named in honor of General John Caldwell, a Virginian who served under General George Rogers Clark in the 1786 Indian Expedition. He later became a lieutenant governor of Kentucky in 1804. Princeton is the county seat, located on the Cumberland River. Murray, the county seat of Callaway County. Callaway County population, 28,922. Area square miles, 386, rank 37. Callaway County is located in the 1st Congressional District.
Okay, we're standing outside of the Callaway County Courthouse, which is located in Murray, Kentucky. To my left, I have Mr. and Mrs. William Fergus, who have been local merchants for how many years?
54 years.
54 years, business being across the street from the courthouse. We were going to ask them some information on the town and the county seat itself. Mr. Fergus, first of all, tell us a little bit about your business. I'm sure since you've been in town as many years as you said that you've seen some changes here.
Well, quite a few changes. We started just a watch repair shop about 54 years ago, and I just got out of watchmaking school, and we got married, and I had to start in business. I couldn't get no job back then during the Depression, and we've been in business here ever since. I went in business actually just aimed to stay a while, but I found out I could make a living, so I never did get out of business.
What about industry? What is the major industry in this area?
We have Fisher Price Toy Company that's been here for a few years, and have Briggs and Stratton Motor Company, which is a very good industry, and we have Sarge Glove Company, and let's see, I don't know, we got a little spraying company down here on another street, and we got a industrial park out there and started, and there's a book company moved in out there that sells the books for the colleges, and it's all over this area, really.
What about farming?
Well, farming is still our major industry around here, really. It's a lot of big farmers that's still doing all right. Some of the small farmers had a hard way to go, but it seems like they're all getting consolidated and getting bigger farmers now instead of a lot of little farmers.
So some of the farmers, the small farms, are merging with other farmers?
Yeah, I've got a brother that farms extensively. He does a little trucking and bulldozing, first one thing another. It seems like they have to do some sideline work to keep it going, but he's doing all right in his farming.
My name is Ann Thompson Wood.
And I'm Auburn J. Wells, former instructor at Murray State University, interested in Kentucky history. I'm glad to discuss this material with you. Will you hold up the first one? This is a reprint of paper put out initially by the Ledger and Times of Murray, Kentucky. It was printed in sections following World War II, and was able to secure the originals and had reprints made of them. And you see the title is Heroes of World War II, Callaway County, Kentucky. And it shows their military records and pictures of many of them. Also, in the very opening pages there shows some of those who lost their lives in World War II. The Paducah News-Democrat, January 13th, 1924. And this came at about the time of the end of the first semester of what was then called Murray State Normal School, an educational epoch in western Kentucky. And it shows the first student body. The normal school, forerunner of Murray State University, was started in the ground floor of the Murray High School building, and this is the Murray High School building. And it shows the first president, Dr. John W. Carr. This is the emblem of Murray State, now Murray State University. 1911, Callaway County Gazette, a special edition, and it simply deals with Callaway County and Murray, Kentucky. On the front is rather interesting pictures therein. It shows the Indian, the Western life, a pioneer, and may not see it here, but there's a wigwam here and a cabin here, and then on into the background it tapers off, into an industrial community, farmland and industrial community. And this show has pictures of the early people in Callaway County, county officials and the history thereof, and many other interesting features, including advertising. In the old days, this is 1911, is the printing of the Murray Ledger. This was printed in, let me see, the date is April the 15th, 1916. And again, this is put out by a group from the Murray Methodist Church. And these are the ladies involved, and the gentlemen there are the publishers and whatnot. The original boundaries of Callaway County, which included the present county of Marshall, were created by an act of the General Assembly approved December the 15th, 1821. The territory at that time being a part of Caldwell and Livingston counties. In 1822, the legislature passed an act establishing the county, and January 16th of the following year, the commissioners appointed met in the town of Wadesboro and effected permanent organization. Callaway, the 72nd county in order of formation, lies in the southeast quarter of the Purchase District and embraces an area of 396 square miles or 252,800 acres, bounded as follows, to wit, Marshall County on the north, Tennessee River on the east, the state of Tennessee on the south, and Graves County on the west. In reference to the early settlers, see this account, said according to historian Collins, James Stewart and David Jones were the first white men to locate within the present limit of Callaway County. They came here, he says, as early as 1818 from Caldwell County and opened farms about 1 mile east of Wadesboro. The idea that Wadesboro was the first county seat of Callaway County. In the early 1840s, it was divided into two counties, Callaway and Marshall County, and the county seat was moved from Wadesboro to Murray, Kentucky.
One of the things that we have learned in touring all 120 of Kentucky's counties is that it's Kentucky's people that's really made the history of this state, this great commonwealth. And frankly, we have two people with us today here in Murray and Callaway County that I wanted to come across the table and interview and ask a little bit about themselves and their lives here in the Callaway County area. Let's begin first, if we may, with Mrs. Wood. Mrs. Wood, give us a little of your background. Where were you born and raised, and can you tell us a little bit about life here in Callaway County?
Well, I was born here in Callaway County, just about 500 yards from where I live now, and I have never lived anywhere else. Life in Callaway County has changed an awful lot since I was a good deal younger than I am now. Only in town were there electric lights. The rest of us used lamps and the wash pots outdoors, and we drew water from the wells or cisterns, but we didn't know we were underprivileged at all. We thought we were having just a whole lot of fun. And we did have a lot of fun. We went around to the neighbors at night and played games. I grew up in a neighborhood where there were a lot of children, and we played among ourselves on Sunday afternoons and at night in the wintertime and had just a very happy childhood. I started to school at what was called then the training school, the demonstration school of it was the Murray Normal School then, but it became MSU now. The training school, a demonstration school where the students for the college could learn to teach, was built in 1924. We had a reunion Saturday night of everybody who had ever gone to the training school. There were over 550, and every class from 1924 up to 1976, when the school was closed, was represented, and we had a wonderful time. As Murray State grew, it outgrew its original intent to train teachers. It became a university, and because of that, the training school had to shift names. For a while, it was College High. And then when the college became a university, it was called University School. But as the college swung away from teacher training The school was closed in 1976. I retired from the school system, and I'm enjoying retirement here now.
Going from a little country town with gravel streets, gravel around the court square, that is, to a progressive, developing, active community. And it's been a wonderful change in every respect. I think Murray is an up-and-coming little town or city, working hard at doing the best things for itself. Of course, the university has been a great boon to the economy and the people and the culture of this town. I graduated in 1924, and then I attended Murray State Normal at the beginning in the fall of 1924. I was fairly active in athletics, playing baseball, basketball, and football. In fact, I have 11 letters total, that is in the 4 years that I spent at Murray. We had real good athletic teams for a beginning school, say the new kid on the block. First year that I played football, played football, we won 3, lost 3, tied 3. And in the next year, with the advent of Coach Carlisle Cutchins from Mayfield, we had an undefeated record, winning 6 and losing none. And in the next year, we only lost 2. And in the final year at Murray State, we had an undefeated season again, having a tie game with Southern Illinois from Carbondale, but winning 9 and losing none, and winning the Mississippi Valley Conference Championship in football. I might add that I played on the very first basketball team in Murray's history. That'd be in school year of 1925 and 26. Even beginning with the basketball, we had a winning season, and continued that. I think Coach Carlisle Cutchins coached 17 years basketball at Murray, and had only one losing season. That was just by a single game. So I appreciated the possibility and opportunity of playing in athletics for Murray State, and I think I made also a creditable scholastic record, graduating with a distinction in 1929. I had to lay out 1 year to make a little money to continue my education, and so I graduated in 1929.
I taught my first year in a one-room school, and there you were, and the county furnished coal, and that was all the county could furnish. I don't want to leave the impression that they just were mean with us. They could furnish no more than that, and we started in the middle of the summer to use as little coal as we could. I had 14 in there, and you can do a lot of good teaching in a one-room school if it's small.
One of the things I'm going to ask you here that you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but for historical purposes, where were you all born, and approximately your age?
Born in Marshall County, Elva, E-L-V-A, little town, present time, was then, still is. And then from there, moved to Callaway County, Murray.
And what year was that you were born?
1906.
1906,
I was born right outside Murray in western Callaway County in 1922. I'm 65.
Fantastic. As I talk to both of you, one of the greatest pleasures I enjoy in my life is the fact that I still have my father alive, who's in his early 80s, and I can sit and talk with him about the days that he walked to the one-room schoolhouse, and when we come down Highway 71 from Covington to Louisville, he points out on the left-hand side of the road of a house sitting over there, and every time we come by there, he says, "Son, that's where I first went to the school," and walked 5 miles one way to get to school. And sometimes I think that one of the things we want these tapes to do is to impart a little appreciation to the younger generation and to our current citizens that make up our government structure of the importance that groundwork and history is to our development as a nation and to our development as a world. Because frankly, if it had not been for people like Mr. Wells and and Mrs. Woods, and their counterparts, we today would not have the freedoms that we do have in this great land called America. And as I've said as a government teacher many times, and I think you both would agree with this, the freedoms that we abuse, we tend to lose, and the freedoms that we fail to use, we tend to lose. So we all should become involved in our government and our history and helping to educate people about how really good we do have it in America and how it is great to be a free nation and able to speak out on subjects such as we're doing today.
John, my name is Robert O. Miller. John, I'm standing in front of the first courthouse ever erected in Callaway County. As you can see from the historical marker erected here, this was the first public building in the Jackson Purchase. It was built in 1823, and the cost of it was $100. I'm sure the audience can see it in the background. It was moved to Murray when the original courthouse was built here, served for a while, and then later it was bought by a private citizen, and he built a home around this courthouse. And when his home then was torn down and the original building was discovered inside there after it had been inside his house for about 100 years, we had a crew to take it apart log by log and put it back on the Murray State College campus. It did not attract much attention there. Later, when the park was bought and this park was built, it was moved here and re-erected here. It's a very historical building, and of course the oldest structure, and as I said, in the Jackson Purchase. It's supposedly in its original condition, except of course we've chinked the logs and put a shake roof on it. This building in this park, we have the National Boy Scout Museum, which is the headquarters for the Boy Scouts of America for the United States. It's the only one in the United States, moved here from Dallas, Texas. It's erected on the campus of Murray State University, and daily tours are made through the Boy Scout Museum. We also have a tablet like this, a historical marker on the campus of Murray State University where Nathan B. Stubblefield lived. Nathan B. Stubblefield is listed in the World Almanac as the inventor of radio, and although Marconi is listed as the perfecter of radio and the secured patent on the thing. Callaway County has many tourist attractions in addition to the Boy Scout building, the Nathan B. Stubblefield birthplace marker. As you know, it has 20 miles of Kentucky Lake shoreline, several nice resorts in Callaway County on Kentucky Lake. That's the main tourist attraction, except the city of Hazel, which lies right on the Tennessee line, has lately become a mecca for antique dealers. There are 7 or 8 antique shops there. Those are the chief tourist attractions, or things that visitors to our county would need to be aware of and might like to visit. John, I wouldn't want anybody to leave with the impression that this is our Callaway County Courthouse. We do have a new, fairly modern courthouse built in 1914 on the Court Square at Bury, Kentucky. In addition to that, during my last year as judge, I purchased from the federal government a United States Post Office, which is located on one corner of the Court Square, which is known as the Miller Courthouse Annex. And all the court business and the circuit court clerk, all the records for court are kept in that building. The original courthouse has a historical cornerstone on it built in 1914, telling who the judge and the magistrates were at the time it was built.
Jerry Reed, the reference librarian at Callaway County Public Library. We've collected over 2,000 photographs now, and from that collection we have selected a great number. They will be published in a book called The Potpourri of Callaway County. It's a pictorial history of the county. Of 2 gentlemen repairing a rail fence, something typical of that period. The next photograph is a button, a wedding button. Both the bride and groom had pictures of themselves worn by their mate on their lapel on the wedding day, and this was a little keepsake that they kept throughout their their married life. Now this is a picture of Mary Russell Williams White, who was the county court clerk from 1938 to 46. It proves that Callaway County was not averse to having women represent them in public office. Now this one shows Egner's Ferry when it was a horse-drawn apparatus. The horse walked in a pattern here and caused the wheel to turn, and the wheel caused the ferry to cross the river. These are some early photographs of the Callaway County Court of various years. This is the first jury in the new courthouse in 1914. This shows one of the one-room schoolhouses. And these are the pupils in that schoolhouse. This is a picture of Miss Sally Howard, who was a teacher at Lynn Grove, and one of the subjects that she taught was Tsar, which was Russian. Max Hurt as a child. Max Hurt was a prominent man here in Callaway County who did a lot of good for a lot of folks, and he recently died and is sadly missed. These show the different modes of dress as the young boys grew up. Here he's in a dress, and then this was a day of celebration when he graduated into the short pants suit. It was Nathan B. Stubblefield with his completed contraption that did transmit the voice. He called it his wireless telephone. Photograph shows the modest frame home of Nathan Stubblefield. It was probably the first radio broadcasting station in the world. This photograph was made soon after he returned from his trip to Washington, where he demonstrated his radio on the Potomac and in Philadelphia as early as 1902. A surveyor's chain that belonged to the Curd family. He worked for the land office that was established in Wadesboro in the early 20s. That chain marked and measured all of the land in Callaway County, which at that time included Marshall County. Well, it's the depot and tobacco district, and that's what the depot was used for mainly, was the shipping of tobacco. These are a couple of school pictures. The interior of a country store. Can you use any of these? I just happened to cross them and they seem maybe. The jailhouse I have no details about. It's just an early jail. It's a recent acquisition of the library, but we don't have details about where it was located or the date. This is the stock barn, which belongs to Tom and Sue Farthing. It was built on property which they own in New Concord in 1868. There's the cornerstone incorporated in that building with that date marked on it. The County Public Library volunteers began collecting old photographs and duplicating them 5 years ago. They've worked on their photograph book. It's called A Potpourri of Callaway County. They are selections of something less than 2,000 pictures in it, along with little bits of stories, historical events, and little funny anecdotes are included in it. There'll be over 200 pages in that book, and we're offering it for sale. The after publication price will be $35, and we'd be happy to have orders from any of you who'd like one. Orders can be mailed to the volunteers of Callaway County Public Library. Checks for $35 can be made out to Old Photo Collection and mailed to 710 Main Street, Murray, Kentucky, 42071.
Bardwell, the county seat of Carlisle County. Carlisle County population, 5,064. Area square miles, 191. Rank, 108. Carlisle County is located in the 1st Congressional District.
In Carlisle County at the county seat, which is located in Bardwell, Kentucky. And with me we have the Judge Executive Warren Owens, and we've asked him to take a little time out of his day and provide us with some information on the county itself and the county seat. Judge.
Yes. It's certainly good to have you folks with us today here, and appreciate you coming by. It's always a pleasure to have people visit with us. Carlisle County, this past year, as you know, was 100 years old. In 1886, the county was formed from Ballard County. It was the southern, what you call South Ballard, and it was made Carlisle County. John G. Carlisle introduced this legislation in the House to get this county made a new county. And it is a rather small county. We have a lot of good things here in Carlisle County. We appreciate the people and how they respond to our needs when we have a crisis or a real emergency. And we lost our old courthouse in 1980, and we were very fortunate to have this nice new building here to have to be our courthouse and court system here in Carlisle County.
Just seeing the portrait of the structure, the old one was a beautiful structure. I'm sure you were all quite sad when it went.
Well, it's just like losing your home, you know, when you stay in a place as long as some of us had been around the old courthouse, and we had spent a lot of money repairing it and doing the things that would make it a better place and nicer place. And when you lose something like that, it's just, you know, just like losing part of your home or something like that, because it's devastating. Mm-hmm. And of course, we were very fortunate to be able to get a hold of the money to build this courthouse. And we still owe a lot of money on it, and but it's working out fine.
Well, it's a beautiful building. That's for sure. Judge, in terms of tourism, something we've asked most of the judges that we've met with, or someone representative of the county, is there what are the highlights of the county as far what could someone do coming through your county of Carlisle, sports-wise, or there are swimming activities or whatever?
Well, we got a lot of lakes along the Mississippi River bottoms, and in the wintertime, when the duck season's in, we do have some good duck hunting at certain times in Mayfield Creek area and along the Mississippi River Flyway. And of course, you know, Mississippi River is something a lot of folks in the world would like to see, and sometimes I think we take it for granted. We live right on the Mississippi River, and we just know it's a big body of water, and a lot of people around over the world, you know, they'd like to see that Mississippi River. Mm-hmm. And it is something to see. The duck hunting is quite good in that area most of the time when the season's in, especially when the river is high and you get some water back out over the farmlands, and it makes it real good.
Are there avid fishermen, or is this a good place for fishing?
Just about everybody in Carlisle County is fishermen,
Everybody really likes to fish, and they like sport fishing. And we got several lakes in Carlisle County and surrounding counties along the Mississippi River, Ohio River. So we take advantage of fishing every time we get an opportunity here. We catch some good fish here. And Mississippi River furnishes a lot of fish for the commercial fishermen. And we're quite interested in seeing that our waters stay clean and are not polluted so that we can use the fish out of those streams. We're hoping that we get Mayfield Creek cleaned and dredged, so that will be clean. We had a fourth grader the other day came to fiscal court, said he'd like for us to clean up the creek down there because he fished there and it took him a long time to get his fish cleaned. So we'd like to get his creek cleaned up too.
Great.
I hope we can.
Thank you, Judge.
As Judge Owens was saying, Carlisle was the 119th county formed in May of 1886 from Ballard County. It was named for John Griffith Carlisle, prominent Kentucky citizen. The first settlement in this area was at Fort Jefferson in 1780 by George Rogers Clark. It was still owned by the Chickasaw Indians. Fighting occurred and the settlement was abandoned in 1784 until 1823. The plot for Bardwell was surveyed in 1879 for Alonzo Shakelin and A.W. Violet, owners of the land. It was still in Ballard County and the seat was in Wickliffe. A committee was formed to locate a county seat for Carlisle County, and it met in May 1886 at Arlington, Kentucky. Both Arlington and Bardwell wanted it, but Bardwell was chosen because it was located near the center of the county. The first county court met in the Masonic Hall in Milburn with Thomas P. Hayes as the first judge. On May the 24th, 1886, Botkins Hall was designated the courthouse until a new one could be built. It was finished in 1887 and is a particularly attractive one, a two-story brick Victorian with a tall wooden cupola. Bardwell got its name from the boarded well, which was such a good one, it became a showplace. Due to difficulty in pronouncing the name resulted in the town being called Bardwell. It is a center for the Illinois Central Railroad. Unfortunately, as the judge pointed out, they lost their old courthouse of 1887 from fire. Hopkinsville, the county seat of Christian County. Christian County population, 64,107. Area square miles, 722. Rank, number 2. Christian County is located in the 1st Congressional District.
I'm William Turner, native and lifetime resident of Hopkinsville in Christian County, and as you indicated, I'm a professor of history at Hopkinsville Community College and the official historian for Hopkinsville and Christian County.
We'd like some information on the structure behind us and perhaps any former courthouses before this.
I commend your effort for collecting the material on courthouses in Kentucky. It's a project long overdue. Christian County is 190 years old this month. And the courthouse in front of which we're standing right now is the 4th on this site or within the immediate approximate area, dating from 1799. The county was organized the 1st of March 1797, and in November of that year the first action was taken to construct the first courthouse, and presumably the next year a log structure was built that was used for about 10 years. And we're quoting from information out of the county order books. In 1808, the first permanent courthouse was built of brick. It was a 2-story structure and had a cupola. It was designed by the Louisville architect Hugh Rowland, a name very familiar in Kentucky architectural history. In 1836, that building had become dilapidated and the county had not kept it up. And so according to the county court records, then the 3rd courthouse was built, the 2nd brick, on this same site, built in 1836, 1838. And we have a photograph of that courthouse, for it was the one burned on the 12th of December in 1864 by Confederate General Highland B. Lyon, better known as the courthouse burner throughout western Kentucky. And so through the years immediately following the war between the states, or as I jokingly say, the War of Northern Aggression, then the court met in various buildings around town. In 1867, construction was started on this present courthouse. It was designed by the Louisville architect Joseph K. Frick, whose name appears in the keystone over the arch here at the front door. Frick would later settle in Evansville and is remembered for a number of buildings he designed up there. And the building we now use as our county courthouse cost $100,000, and a portion of that money was obtained from the federal government by act of Congress, as did a number of other counties receive money from the federal government for repayment of loss due to rebel insurrection and rebel destruction of courthouses. I believe of the approximate $100,000 cost involved, federal funding amounted to about $15,000. And so I would venture a guess, as far as Hopkinsville and Christian County go, that this receipt of $15,000 was probably the first federal grant of money. We were talking about the present courthouse, completed and occupied in July of 1869, and since that time to the present it has served as the official seat of justice for the county of Christian. There have been a number of events, a part of the life of this community, as I'm sure you find all across the Commonwealth of Kentucky, relative to human interest stories out of old courthouses. The most celebrated event, I guess, ever to take place within the walls of this old structure was the famous Night Rider trial. The Night Riders were farmers, upset over the low price they were receiving for their dark tobacco in the first decade of this century, and so a group of farmers throughout the Black Patch, some 35 counties in western Kentucky and western Tennessee, organized what they knew as the Silent Brigade, and they went about attempting to attract attention of other farmers to join the association and thus create a holding action against Buck Duke's American Tobacco Trust and thereby raise the price of their dark tobacco. Well, Dr. David Amos of the little community of Cobb in Caldwell County to the northwest of us was singled out as the leader, the alleged leader of the Silent Brigade. And in March of 1911, I remember it vividly, the eyes and ears of all of Kentucky were tuned to Hopkinsville to the famous Night Rider trial. It occurred upstairs in the circuit court room of this building for a week in 1911. The jury, by the way, of 12 consisted of 11 farmers and one town carpenter just recently moved to town from the country. So we have a very strong impression about the consistency of the jury on that occasion. And so Dr. Amos was adjudged not guilty. And fortunate that he was, because my prediction would have been that we would have had near rioting in the streets of Hopkinsville had he been found guilty. Later on, Governor Augustus E. Wilson promised that he would personally pardon anyone who killed a night rider, and that took the wind out of their sails. And within a very short period of time, the Night Rider movement was history. Also, on the steps of this courthouse in the 1920s, we had a sheriff who shot and killed his son-in-law in the courthouse. Self-defense, of course, was the claim, and that was the extent of it. One story is related about a circuit judge we had here early in the century, Judge Jack Henberry. One day he was conducting court, and apparently it was a widely publicized case, and the windows of the circuit courtroom on the second floor above were raised, and quite a crowd had gathered here in front and around on the side of the building to try to listen to the testimony. And remember, this was in the day before microphones. Well, apparently, amid all of the deliberation in court, the group inside distinctly heard the braying of a very typical Kentucky animal. 4 legs in consistency. We know it in western Kentucky as a jackass. And as the jackass brayed, a ripple of laughter swept across the courtroom, and the judge rapped the gavel on the podium and called out, "One at a time, gentlemen, one at a time." That, of course, broke up the crowd. So there are a few thoughts that come to mind about the life of events in this community within the courthouse. We'll turn our attention to the photographs you're holding so you won't think you have become a statue and are going to be here permanently. Before us is a photograph of the Hugh Rowland designed 1836-38 courthouse on this present site. It was burned by Confederate General Highland Lyon on December 12, 1864. And then moving along, and I'll move these out of the way, just to our left, where the Alhambra Theater is now located, to your left, stood the clerk's office building. And this was for the county records. Hence, our county records are intact back to March 1st, 1797. Because of the time of the fire in 1864, the records were maintained within the clerk's office building next door. The group out front are the Latham Light Guards, the local company of state militia, Company D as they were known. And then moving along through these photographs, the next one is the earliest located photograph of the present Christian County Courthouse, circa 1870. The building at that time was about 1 year old. And then we'll turn the other one in this way. Friend, the picture before you there is a lithograph or a line drawing of the Christian County Courthouse as it appeared in the Perrin History of Christian County, 1884. William Henry Perrin of Louisville compiled a number of county histories in the 1880s, and Christian was fortunate enough to be included within that group, and consequently this drawing of the courthouse in that building. The next photograph is a copy from a postcard view of the courthouse around 1895, and you will observe in this picture that the cupola atop the building is somewhat different from the later one, so there have been two different cupolas on top of this structure. The one pictured here was removed in 1903 to be replaced by the one we'll see photographed coming up in just a moment. The next photograph is a picture of the grocery delivery wagon of W.T. Cooper and Company. W.T. Cooper was located across the street in this building you see to your right with his name still embossed in metal there on the front of the building, and he had the Diamond Grocery Store. And fortunately for our interest in the courthouse, he had the grocery wagon and horse lined up right in front of the building when the picture was made. And then a photograph from a 1930 vintage of the circuit court clerk, Judge Ira D. Smith, the circuit judge. The man on the right is Circuit Judge Ira D. Smith, who, if information is correct from Frankfurt, the indication is given that he is the longest serving circuit judge in Kentucky history. He was on the bench here for 40 years. And he is still living in a local nursing home at the age of 98. The man to his right is the Circuit Court Clerk, Phelan Clark. So again, Circuit Court Clerk Phelan Clark, Circuit Judge Ira D. Smith, photographed in the Circuit Courtroom about 1930. Among the treasures of our local photographs, this one is one that is of great interest to me, as all of them are for that fact, but this one especially because it's an interior view of the Circuit Court Clerk's office in 1897 and is the earliest located photograph of the interior of the courthouse. And you might note the coal-fired stove with the scuttle and the pipe going to the flue above, the wicker bottom chair, the matting on the floor, and the men, the personalities sitting around, certainly portray an interesting characteristic. You find it all across Kentucky in all courthouses. The gas lights were an innovation of that particular era. The courthouse was one of the first buildings in town to have a furnace installed in it. One of the first buildings in town to be wired for electricity in the 1890s. An unusual photograph of the courthouse in the fact that the picture from April 1910, and I said April, indicates fresh fallen snow. Very unusual for April, and someone had the presence of mind to go make a picture of the trees that stood here in front of the courthouse on that momentous event in local weather history. This is a photograph of the interior of the county clerk's office in 1924 with the beloved and well-known local political figure, Dr. Frank H. Bassett, on the extreme left facing the picture. George Powell, the former county court clerk, on the right. The man next to him is the late Vigo Barnes, who for a number of years was the Commissioner of Economic Security for the state of Kentucky. And the three women were clerks in the county clerk's office in that 1924 view. In the early 1950s, a terrible storm crisscrossed Christian County and blew the metal roof of the courthouse off. And through the effort of the county employees, the records were not damaged by the ensuing water that came through the roof of the building. And someone happened to photograph this rather unusual event in the history of the Christian County Courthouse. Another photograph that portrays a great interesting angle in Kentucky history is the counting of ballots after an election. And I guess all across the Commonwealth, election balloting was done within the circuit courtroom, and you'll notice the lineup of ballot boxes across the front and the tellers at the table as they were calculating the vote. You know, today we know the results in 30 minutes. In the years of the ballot boxes, we were sometimes 2 or 3 days knowing the results, and the passage of time heightened the interest and attention and anxiety. And consequently, this was a very important event. No doubt the politicians are gathered around, as are officials, to make sure that the voting is done properly. And this was the same circuit courtroom, by the way, in which the celebrated Knight Rider trial was held in March of 1911. And last but not least, a photograph of the courthouse in 1960 when the 1903 cupola was being removed. It was removed because county officials feared the heavy weight of the superstructure was too great a stress on the upper support beams in the roof of the courthouse, so it was taken off. We've always found of humor the sign, "One way, do not enter," that appeared right in front of the courthouse from the angle shot of this photographic view, 1960. I would like to introduce to your film archive the Assistant County Attorney James G. Adams, Jr., better known as Jim. Jim happened to stumble out of the courthouse there a few minutes ago, and I'm mighty glad you came along to be recorded, sir.
Glad to be with you, William.
Thank you, Jim. A couple of things, John, I might mention, first of all, because of your association with the Department of Motor Vehicle Registration. We would call to your attention the fact that in our local Pennyroyal Area Museum, we have a complete collection of Kentucky automobile license plates dating back to 1910 and including the first 4 years of porcelain plates. We've had year-dated plates in Kentucky since 1914, according to our research. And the collection there, representing a number of years of effort, is one of interest to a number of people who come through the museum. And you asked, secondly, for us to relate for just a moment some of the landmarks relative to the history of this community. There are many. First of all, the Pennyroyal Area Museum, of which Jim Adams is board chairman currently, and the historian here is a board member, attempts to collect and share the history of not only Hopkinsville and Christian County, but the Pennyroyal area, as we refer to the Pennyroyal region, the Pennyroyal. Hopkinsville in Christian County is the birthplace of Jefferson Davis, only president of the Confederate States of America. And the monument at Fairview, 10 miles east, is built near the site of his birth, a real tourist attraction to the people here in this immediate part of western Kentucky. Fort Campbell, 16 miles to the south, is a large military base established in 1941 and completed in 1942 as Camp Campbell, a place where, prior to the Normandy invasion of D-Day, saw a troop strength of some 90,000 soldiers. An event, by the way, I might add, that brought ecstasy to the young ladies of Hopkinsville and Clarksville and made the young men of these communities mad as the hinges of Hades for all of the competition. Also, I would call your attention to Pilot Rock and Natural Bridge, two natural formations located northeast of Hopkinsville on or near the Todd County line. The Confederate Monument at Riverside Cemetery commemorates the burial place of 101 unknown Confederate soldiers, now known, by the way. The Pioneer Cemetery, the resting place for the early settlers of this community, was opened in 1812. I'm also reminded, among other personalities from here, that Adlai Ewing Stevenson, Vice President of the United States under Grover Cleveland between 1893 and 1897, was born at Herndon, some 10 miles south of Hopkinsville. The Stevenson family had settled here from North Carolina early in the century and would move on to Illinois, to Bloomington, Illinois, in 1853. Christian County is also the birthplace of Edward T. Ned Breathitt, governor of Kentucky between 1963 and 1967, and the first of what we believe will be a number of governors from Hopkinsville and Christian County. Jim, do you think of other personalities from here we might mention?
I believe you covered it, William.
Marion, the county seat of Crittenden County. Crittenden County population, 8,989. Area square miles, 360. Rank, 42nd. Crittenden County is located in the 1st Congressional District.
We're standing in front of the Crittenden County seat, which is located in Marion, Kentucky. And with me we have two gentlemen which are local historians. I'm going to ask both of them to introduce themselves and to give some background on the area. Your name?
Thomas Tucker.
Thomas lives 2 doors down, by the way.
I'm B.C. McNeely, and I'll give some of the history of the county. Our first permanent settlers arrived in the county around 1790 to 1810. The county was originally a part of Livingston County and was formed into a separate county in 1842. The county was named for John J. Crittenden, one of the early statesmen of the state of Kentucky. He was a U.S. Senator 5 terms and also was governor of the state of Kentucky. Many of the early settlers of the county were veterans of the Revolutionary War and the War of 1812, and they were awarded land for their services in these wars, and they settled here in this county. One of the routes, east-west routes of the early settlers when they were traveling west, came through Crittenden County and crossed the Ohio River at a site known as Ford's Ferry. They say that in the early days that the traffic was so heavy that during the daytime hours you would never be outside of another wagon. There was always one either in front or in the rear. And much of the history of the county is centered around the site of Ford's Ferry and the alleged history which has come down through the years of the Ford's Ferry gang, which many people say killed and robbed many of the travelers who traveled through this area. The first courthouse was occupied by federal troops during the Civil War, and the courthouse was burned to the ground by Confederate troops in 1865, and these troops were commanded by General H.B. Lyons of the Confederate Army. Ollie M. James, Ollie M. James, a Democrat, and William J. Debo, a Republican, were U.S. senators from this county. Also, Lee Cruz, a native of this county, was the second governor of the state of Oklahoma. Tom Wallace, the well-known editor of the Courier-Journal and Louisville Times for many years, was a native of Crittenden County. Crittenden is a rural county with farming its main industry. For many years, fluorspar mining was a flourishing industry in the county until the business was lost to the Mexico miners because of the for economic reasons. River right opposite this county on the Ohio side at Cave and Rock is the cave where all the bandits and everything hid out back in the early 1800s, late 1870. The outlaws of Cave and Rock. That was Jim Ford from Ford's Ferry, the one. He had supposed to have had something to do with it, and it's a very beautiful place over there. There's high bluffs all along the river. That's where they're fussing about the state line.
Okay.
We come right within about 20 feet of the caves. We weren't trying to claim the cave, understand, but it's a beautiful place over there. But really, as far as the city of Marion here, the Foles Hall, which is is a historical building, which is on the register of what do we call it? Register of historical sites in the state. Yeah, and it's been reclaimed now by the Chamber of Commerce. It's a building that was built by Julius Foles, who was a leader in the fluorspar industry and also then was an oil man, and he built the building and gave it to the city and to the county back in about 1928, I believe, or 29. And it was used for a school for up until about 10 years ago, and when they gave it up, they let the county have it, and the Chamber of Commerce now is operating it, or rather the city is, through an organization which has been founded. And it's a very beautiful building, and it's well worth going to see. And then we also have the Crittenden County Museum, which is just a block from the courthouse, which is one of the better museums in this end of the state. It is really packed with relics and parts of our history there in the county. It's not open. It won't be open now until March, but until the middle of March. But it's open all during the summer months.
Okay.
The current courthouse was erected in the 1950s, and we can see that Crittenden County has a long history of courthouses. The first courthouse was built in 1842 and thought to be logged. The second one was a small brick one and was burned in January 1865 by General Lyon's forces on his last raid into the state. Plundering was done by both sides. Records were destroyed. A new courthouse was built after the war, but in May 1870 this was destroyed by an accidental fire. A handsome new courthouse was constructed upon the same spot and was completed in October 1871. Of course, the present courthouse was built just a short few years ago.
And I have been reading old Crittenden presses, which are on microfilm, over at the library, and I have some prize articles that I have read in there. I'll read you one or two. There's an advertisement in the 1906 Crittenden Press. It says, "You dig your grave with your teeth. Keep them in good shape. Dr. Frederick S. Stilwell over Marion Bank." There was a distillery in Marion in 1906, and the advertisement for it was the Old Hickory Distillery. Old Hickory is as pure as the dew and as good for medicinal purposes as ever. Take home a bottle. 'Twill keep off malaria and drive away the blues.
We just left having a good breakfast over at a place called the Coffee Shop in Marion, the county seat of Crittenden County. One of the things to promote tourism in the state of Kentucky that we can recommend to you is the fine quality food that can be found at some of the small restaurants located in each of the county seats around Kentucky. And here in Marion, in Crittenden County, we found the Coffee Shop, which is owned and operated by an interesting lady. Mr. McNeely, tell us a little bit about Erica.
Erica is from Germany. She's a native of Germany. She married an American soldier, and they moved to Marion. And she's been the proprietor of the coffee shop for some 10 years now. And she's a very wonderful lady and very interesting and very friendly. And she would be delighted to have anyone stop in and see her.
One of the things that you learn about small communities like this is that places like the coffee shop often become sort of a meeting place, both in the mornings before people go to work and in the evenings after they get off of work. In visiting here last night and spending the night here in Crittenden County, I was really impressed by the camaraderie and the sort of familyness of the community, and I think you all are proud of that, and I think it's exemplified by this lovely structure here behind us, where the community has taken abreast of the opportunity to promote tourism and create this fine tourism attraction here for Crittenden County. Tell us a little about this building and how it came to be.
Foles Hall was built by Julius Foles, who was a native of Crittenden County and who made a fortune in the oil fields in Oklahoma. And he built the building and paid the complete cost, which was around $73,000. In 1926. It was donated to the community and to the Marion city of Marion, and was used as a high school building and a community center for many years. Some the building was abandoned some 5 years ago and was given to the county, and an organization was formed, the Foles Hall Incorporated, which is made up of citizens in the county with a board of directors, and they restored the building through foundation grants and through donations, and also through grants from the Foles family, and it has been restored and is a community building now, community center. It is occupied by the Chamber of Commerce here in the city and is used as a community building. The building was selected as a Kentucky landmark in June of 1981 and was accepted on the National Register of Historic Places in May of 1982.
Tom, anything that you'd like to add to that about the structure here?
BC and I went to school here, and we graduated from Foles Hall.
And I understand that this structure across the street here has some history also.
We also went to school there. It was built as a private home, and it was sold later to the Marion Board of Education, and they used it in addition to Foles Hall for the high school students, and we went there also.
They were the high school, the Marion High School, until it consolidated with the county in the 1950s.
And both of you gentlemen are lifelong residents of Crittenden County, is that correct?
Yes, we are. We was born here.
Tell us, Tom, what did you do for a living here in the county?
I was a funeral director, and my father was before me, since started in 1904, till I sold it 5 years ago and retired.
That was the Tucker family funeral home?
Yes, it was.
And BC, what did you do here?
I'm a native of the county. I've been a farmer and a rural mail care for some 30 years, and have been a lifelong resident and I still live in the county.
And I assume that we can impart to our listening audience that life has been good to you folks here in Crittenden County, and you're proud of being a part of this area.
It's a wonderful place to live. Building Foles Hall was built by a local contractor, the Boston Lumber Company, in 1926. Its native limestone was used for the foundation of the building. It is a two-story building with 4 columns of Ionic design flanking the main entrance. On the first floor, the building has a large central hall with large rooms on each side and the auditorium or gymnasium at the hall's end. The second floor contains 2 additional rooms, the balcony and a projection room for the auditorium. The basement contains 2 large rooms which were once used as laboratories for science, agriculture, and home economics, along with restrooms and dressing room facilities. The building's foundation is ruble masonry made from Crittenden County limestone. Workers from Tennessee prepared the foundation for the J.N. Boston and Son Company, which constructed the building.
That Julius Foles' picture there, the one that gave the building and had it built, presented it to the community.
He lived in Marion, Kentucky from the time he was 10 years old until he was through school, I guess.
Through college.
Through college, yeah. The room where they had the band practice during school, and it is now the Chamber of Commerce for the city of Marion, for the county, Crittenden County.
Gave the piano with the building in 1926, and this is the original piano, and it's in perfect condition. It was restored with a class at Marion High School of 1940. They spent several $1,000s to get it restored.
And this facility here is used now for what purposes?
As a community building, and they have different affairs here. There's a square dancing group uses it regularly, and
plays, band concerts,
and singing groups, just a lot of different activities. It's available for rent to anybody in the community that wants to hold an activity here. Years when it was used for school was the library, and the study hall was in the large area. It was filled with tables and chairs, and students, this is where they spent their study hall there.
Hickman, the county seat of Fulton County. Fulton County population, 8,099. Area square miles, 211. Rank, 96th. Fulton County is located in the 1st Congressional District.
We're standing outside of the Fulton County Courthouse, which is located in Hickman, Kentucky. With me, we have two gentlemen who are going to give us a little background information on the county seat and the county itself of Fulton. I'm going to ask both gentlemen to introduce themselves.
I'm Nelson D. Hill, Sheriff of Fulton County. I'm D. Langford, County Clerk, Fulton County.
Okay, thank you. What can you tell us about the county itself?
The county goes back to 1845, and before that it was Mills Point. In 1845 the county was formed and it came off of Hickman County. And it was named after the steamboater Robert Fulton. And also the city of Hickman was a guy named Marr, and his wife's maiden name was Hickman. And he named Hickman after her.
Okay, thank you. What can you tell us in terms of the history of the courthouse itself, the structure, which happens to be a beautiful structure?
The county's courthouse in Fulton County, Kentucky was built in 1903, and there was 6 county seats across this great state, or United States, that was built at the same time, and there's only 2 county seats standing now, which Fulton County is one, and West Virginia has the other. And it cost from $15,000 to $18,000 to build the county seat in Fulton County.
That's some good information. We were asking everybody that represents each county that we're talking with, what would you suggest people come and see? What are the tourist sites here in your county? Because we're also trying to promote tourism for each county.
We have the Mississippi River, which is only a stone's throw from the county seat. We have Reelfoot Lake, which was formed in 1811 and 12, which is only 6 miles from the county seat. And we have all kinds of farming industry, wildlife management, hunting, sport fishing, and you name it, and we've got some of it. I went in the office the first time in 1970, and this makes my 3rd term, and the sheriff is chief law enforcement officer of his county, in which I assist the other city polices here in this county, and then I work the whole county with one chief deputy.
Okay, thank you. Dee, can you tell us about your position here at the courthouse?
After coming home out of World War II, I decided that I'd want to serve the people of Fulton County. And in 1962, I was elected county clerk in Fulton County, Kentucky, and I am deeply indebted to every person, every taxpayer in Fulton County as having elected me year after year as to be their county clerk.
My name is William L. Shadoin. I'm the circuit judge of the 1st Judicial District, or circuit. This 1st circuit includes this county we're in now. It's Fulton County. It's the far end of the state. From here to Ashland, you're about 700 miles away. We go up the river Mississippi to Hickman County next, then Carlisle County and Ballard County. From Ballard County to Fulton County, from county seat to county seat, it's about 45 miles by nearest roads. Those 4 counties are the ones that I cover, and it's a circuit area. Now we have 2 district judges. The district judge will do all misdemeanor cases, and there's one for Hickman and Fulton County, and there's one for Carlisle and Ballard counties. Their term is for 4 years. My term is an 8-year term. Sometimes it almost seems like a lifetime. The district courts handle misdemeanor cases. A misdemeanor, by that I mean is that it carries a fine or a jail sentence of no longer than 12 months in a county jail. My jurisdiction would be on felony cases, and that's ones that go where people, if convicted, are sent to the state penitentiary. Civil matters, I commence at $2,500. The district court would have any jurisdiction on the smaller claims of less than $2,500. They also have a small claims court where no attorneys are involved, and they go up, I think, to $1,500. And they also handle juveniles. I do not do that unless they've been certified to me for a serious crime such as murder. I believe that's it. Now, all of these 4 counties originated out of Hickman County. and then I think Fulton County was cut off of Hickman, then Ballard County, then Carlisle was cut off of Carlisle was cut off of Ballard County. Yes, the Mayfield Creek. Usually the terrain had something to do with how the counties were divided and set up.
Thank you.
Part of Callaway came off of Hickman County.
Yes, Callaway.
Part of Callaway and Graves County came off of Hickman County.
Judge, what can you tell us about, we've already obtained some information on the courthouse itself, but what can you tell us about the clock?
All right. In each of the counties, all of them had a clock and a bell system, and this was what the people carried out their time. They knew their meetings were done. Now, in the one in Fulton County, it still works, and it keeps an accurate time. Now, when we're in the court having court, you'll hear it, and sometimes we have to just take a slight recess there for a few minutes till the chimes quit. But if you'll notice, wherever they're located, they usually dominate the community in which they're in. In Carlisle County, it was just recently burned a year or two, so they have a new courthouse, and there's no chimes or clock now on that one. But you'll find one in Hickman County that does not work, and the one in Ballard County does work. And Ballard, Hickman, and Fulton counties, all of them will be loaded with wasps and birds and things of that nature. So when you go up there, you'll get a grand view. Particularly here, now you're overlooking the Mississippi River, and you're on a big bluff. And you can see for miles up there, and you don't have to get too high. The same is true in Ballard County. Now, Carlisle County is a considerable distance from the river, as is Hickman County. But the two ends of my circuit in Ballard and Carlisle are great views of the river and the whole surrounding area. This property drops off 200 to 300 feet. And you'll see the river down here below, and now it's probably 41 feet. It's not quite flood stage, but it is exceeding its boundaries. You see a tremendous amount of water. The project you have that you're doing now, I think, is an excellent one. Particularly, we're having a lot of complaints about children in schools not having enough history or knowing enough about particularly in their state history. And I think this is an excellent idea to get this across. And I know that every judge that I know, particularly circuit and district, and the county officials, are more than willing to give any information or advice they have on the history of their office and the courthouse and the county to the students. And since television is such a large media now and acknowledged, and all students watch it for pleasure or otherwise, this is a great way to get across to them what really they need to know.
Okay, thank you. Would you mind introducing yourself?
James Cooper. I'm the caretaker of the Fulton County Courthouse clock. And it's self-Thomas works, and it was put up there in 1904. And the courthouse was built in 1903, so it took them a year to get the clock up there.
How long have you taken care of that clock?
Oh, ever since about the 50s. You know, completely overhauled it about 12 years ago.
Okay, thank you. Would you mind introducing yourself?
I am Danny Zickafus, the pastor of the First Baptist Church here in Hickman. We're the oldest church in town. It was established in 1846. In the same location it now sits. It burnt in 1879, was blown away by a tornado in 1901, and burned again in the early 1960s at the time they built the present building. And we're just real happy. I've been living in Hickman about 2 years. It's a beautiful town.
Mayfield, the county seat of Graves County. Graves County population, 32,934. Area square miles, 557. Rank, 7th. Graves County is located in the 1st Congressional District.
With me today, we have a gentleman, R.B. Ligon, who is a well-noted local historian, and we wanted to ask him a few questions about the area, the courthouse, and the county itself. Mr. Ligon, I'm just going to ask you to tell us everything you know about the area and the county.
Well, to begin with, Graves County was carved out of what was known in historical circles as the Jackson Purchase. And the reason for the Jackson Purchase was when Kentucky was first admitted into the Union as a state back in 1792, the title to this part of the state west of the Tennessee River, wasn't exactly clear, and So when the governor, the former governor of Kentucky, Isaac Shelby, who was Kentucky's first governor, he and Andrew Jackson were commissioned by the current governor at that time to negotiate a treaty with the Chickasaw Indian Nation. Now, the Jackson Purchase really involved three different states, Kentucky and Tennessee and northern Mississippi, and extended from the Ohio River on the north to the Yazoo River on the south, and from the Tennessee River on the east to the Mississippi River on the west. And so Kentucky's part of the Jackson Purchase consisted of these 9 counties that are west of the Tennessee River. The counties of Ballard, Carlisle, Hickman, Fulton, Graves, Callaway, and Martin completed, which was on the 19th day of October, 1818. This, to begin with, this was all a part of Hickman County. And then one by one, various counties began to be carved out of Hickman County. And Graves County was carved out of Hickman County in 1823 and was created by an act of the legislature. It was passed in the closing days of 1823, and so that really marks the beginning of Graves County. And the city of Mayfield had been founded and established by a few settlers like the Anderson family and the Shelton family and a few other pioneer families. And the site of Mayfield was selected where we're standing now. And the first courthouse that was built was a log structure. It was built in 1824, and a replica of it stood in the northwest corner of our courthouse yard until a few years ago. And then the second courthouse, a brick structure, and the commissioners that were responsible for the building of the courthouse were William Burklow and John Cunningham. And this structure, which was built in 1834, stood until 1864, when the Confederate troops that occupied the courthouse during the Civil War, when they were forced then to abandon and evacuate the courthouse, then they burned it. So the next year then, in 1865, the third courthouse was built, and it stood until 1880. It was either in 1887 or 1888 when the courthouse burned, the third courthouse, and the present courthouse was built and completed and ready for occupancy in the year 1889. The building that we see here now goes back to 1889, and then in 1935, as a part of the Public Works Administration project, an addition was added to the courthouse on the south side, which gives our present courthouse the shape of a T. And so the courthouse here is probably, well, it's not exactly the oldest structure in Mayfield. There are some houses in Mayfield that are older than the courthouse. Graves County was created by act of legislature in 1824, and let's see, an area of 18 miles wide and 30 miles long was designated to be the length and the width of the county. So Graves County has an approximate area of about 540 or 550 square miles, and it's the only county in the state of Kentucky that has 4 square corners. It's shaped like a perfect rectangle, and each corner has a perfect right angle to it. Some of the first officials of Graves County, let's see, Elijah Craven was the first sheriff of Graves County, and we had some, and Graves County has sent various individuals to Congress. In the 38th Congress, Lucian Anderson served as our congressman from 1863 to 1868, and he is the only Republican to ever serve in the House of Representatives from Graves County. Judge Andrew R. Boone from 1875 to 1879 also served as our representative. And from the 63rd to the 69th Congress, Alvin W. Barkley, who was a native Graves County and having been born in the area what we call Wheel in the northwest corner of the county. Alvin Barkley served as our representative until about 1926. Now, Barkley went to the United States Senate in 1926 when he defeated Senator Richard Ernst, who was a Republican. And so from 1927 to 1956, Senator Barkley was in the United States Senate, with the exception of the time that he served as vice president under Harry Truman. Among some of our earlier representatives, later representatives rather, to Congress from Graves County, were W. Voris Gregory, who served from 1927 to 1936, and in the 75th to the 86th Congress, his brother Noble Gregory served as our representative, and then in 1974 for the 84th Congress, or no, it's the 94th Congress, by our present representative Carol Hubbard has served as our representative from 1974 to the present time. And Graves County was originally carved up into 8 magisterial districts. Each district was 7.5 miles one way by 9 miles the other. And districts 1, 3, 5, and 7 were in the western half of the county, and districts 2, 4, 6, and 8 were in the eastern half of the county. And Graves County had the magisterial form of government until about 20 years ago, when the present commission form of government was organized. So instead of having 8 magistrates on the fiscal court like we used to have, we just have 3 commissioners now that serve on our fiscal court. Graves County, incidentally, is the only county in the state that has 4 square corners, and it is shaped like a perfect rectangle, just like this sheet of paper. And it's in its land area, it's the 4th largest county in the state as far as its land area goes. Pike County, I believe, is the largest county in the state, followed by Pulaski, and then Christian County, which is up here in western Kentucky, up here at Hopkinsville. And so Graves County is the 4th ranking county in the state population-wise. And Graves County has had quite a history behind it. It was named after Captain Benjamin Franklin Graves, who died in the War of 1812 in the Battle of the River Racine in Michigan. Captain Pasquale Hickman was also killed at the same time in the same battle, and he is the man for whom Hickman County was named. Graves County is the largest county in the Purchase area and is the 4th largest county in the area in the state. It is the only county with 4 square corners, being a perfect rectangle. It is 18 miles by 30 miles for an area of about 540 square miles. It is only exceeded in area by Pike, Pulaski, and Christian counties. Mayfield Creek is the largest and most important water course, flowing in a northwestern course from its source in Callaway County. It was named for George Mayfield, a great Indian scout, and he also served as an interpreter for General Andrew Jackson during the negotiations with the Chickasaw Indian nations, which made possible the negotiation of the Jackson Purchase from the Chickasaw Nation. Little O'Brien Creek rises in the county and flows into Hickman County. Clark's River's West Fork flows across the eastern part of the county and empties into the Ohio River. Brush Creek and Little Mayfield Creek and Barn Creek are also, and Blakemore Creek and Terrapin Creek and Knob Creek are also in the south part of the county. And Mayfield was chosen to be the county seat because we are so close to the geographical center of the county. In fact, Mayfield, where we're now standing, is almost in the exact geographical center of the county. And of course, as I said a while ago, the first courthouse was built in 1824, which was a log structure. And the second courthouse, which was the first brick structure, was built in 1834 and served then until 1864, when the Confederate soldiers burned it as they evacuated. And then the present courthouse, that courthouse burned then in 1887. And the present courthouse was completed and ready for occupancy by 1889, and that's the courthouse that we see standing today there. And so some of the earliest cities in Graves County, Old Feliciana was one of the earliest towns that was founded, and it existed until about 1854, when the railroad first came to Graves County. It bypassed Feliciana and went over to Water Valley instead. And so after that, then Feliciana as a city just simply died out. And let's see, Wingo and Water Valley were started as stations along the old Memphis, New Orleans, and Northern Railroad. That was the name that the first railroad had, Memphis, New Orleans, and Northern Railroad. And then it became known as the Newport News and Mississippi Valley Railroad. And then along about the turn of the century, it became known as the Illinois Central Railroad, or the IC Railroad. And it remained in the as the IC Railroad until David Reed and John Smith, who are in the crushed stone and coal business, bought the railroad individually, and so those two men own the railroad individually now. And we used to have passenger trains running through Mayfield here. The last passenger train that ran in Mayfield, I believe, was in 1957, and so we don't have any passenger train service in Mayfield anymore. Graves County had a school system that was started sometime after the Civil War, and up until about 1907 or 1908, the city school system and the county school system was all in one. But then when Mayfield began growing as a city, and a good big sizable portion of its population was in Mayfield, then they decided that to better organize two school systems, and so the county organized a school system of its own, separate and apart from our city school system. The city of Wingo had the first high school that was ever built in Graves County, and our high school here goes back to about 1910, when the old West Kentucky College folded in 1909, and so the city of Mayfield then bought the property and established our public school system.